Every time you plant a tree, you are investing in the future. Trees make our air healthier by absorbing carbon dioxide and giving off oxygen. Trees and other vegetation anchor stream banks, preventing erosion. Trees provide shade and cool our city. And trees improve property values. But your investment can come to nothing if the tree is not planted correctly. I'm Keith Finch, the urban forester for the city of Winston-Salem. Give me a few minutes and I'll give you a few guidelines to follow so the trees you plant pay dividends for years to come. So, where is the right place to plant a tree? Well, the answer is, it depends. It depends on the location, it depends on the type of tree, and it depends on your purpose for planting the tree. As a rule, it helps to have a location in mind first and then pick a tree that will do well there. Trees have specific characteristics. If it's a tree that prefers shade, such as a redbud or dogwood, it will not do well in full sun. And if it's a tree that grows to 60 feet, don't plant it under or near street lights or overhead wires. Here's an example of a magnolia tree planted too close to the utility lines, in which case the utility company had to cut it back. Overhead wires are just one of the obstacles you have to consider when picking a location in a tree. How close is the nearest building? Is it near a fire hydrant or fence? Is it too big to be planted near the sidewalk? And what about sight problems, either pulling out of your driveway or at a street intersection? As you can see here, trees can also block views around curves along city streets. You also have to consider underground obstacles, such as water and sewer lines and water meters. A lot of people overlook that, but you need to stay at least 5 feet away from water meters. And when this tree was planted 15 or 20 years ago, they didn't take that into consideration. Not only are the large roots going to be a problem, but if you plant it too close, a lot of times the base of the tree will overgrow this and you'll never be able to get back to read the water meter. Remember, a tree that seems to have plenty of room when you plant it can prove to be poorly placed if you do not leave room for it when it is fully grown. As a rule of thumb, allow 40 feet of space between trees that will be 40 feet or taller at maturity. For trees that will be 15 to 39 feet tall, space them at least 30 feet apart. And trees that grow 15 feet tall or less should be planted at least 15 feet apart. Of course, if you're planting a narrow growing tree, it will not need the space needed by a tree with a wide canopy. If you are planting a tree for a specific purpose, such as to function as a windbreak, the location will be dictated by the direction of the prevailing winds. Here are some other factors that can influence location and tree selection. Is it an evergreen, or does it drop its leaves in the fall? Can it grow well in your soil? Does it bear messy fruit? How much moisture does it need, and is it suitable for our climate? Is it fast growing or slow growing? As a rule, slow growing trees live longer. Okay, you've done your homework, you're ready to plant, now what? Start by digging a hole that is twice the diameter of the root ball of the tree you're planting. If you're going to plant a containerized tree, it's going to come in a form like this. This is a 15-gallon containerized tree. The first thing you're going to want to do is remove it from the container. So you want to remove it from the pot, and you can look at it once you get it down to see how the roots are. If the roots, there's a lot of roots girdling and they're thicker roots, you may want to cut those before you plant or break them up some before you put them in your hole. This one here seems to be okay. The second thing you want to make sure when you plant and you look at the depth is you want to have this tree growing at the same depth as where it came out of the nursery. And hopefully when it came out of the nursery it was planted properly. And you'll see a root zone. Some people call it a root flare, where the roots come out from the base. That's the height that you want this tree sitting in the hole, or even possibly a little bit higher, because it's going to settle. So once you find out the depth you need it, you measure your hole, you're ready to set the tree in. Okay. You set the tree in the hole, and it should be that this area here at the root flare is at or just above ground level. So once we straighten the tree up, get it the way we want it, we start adding dirt. Then once we get the dirt packed and we fill it up to this level here, no deeper, then we're finished. One other type of tree that you may run into occasionally that you'll want to plant is a bare root. And what it's going to be is something of this nature here, but without the dirt. It's just a bare tree, the roots are bare, and you want to be sure when you dig your hole for that type of tree that you have enough space that the roots can lay out. But again, the key thing to doing that is you want to keep it at the same depth where it came out of the nursery. And you always want to look at this root zone, this root flare. So it's basically the same principle as far as depth goes. One of the more common types of trees that you'll run across that you'll buy to plant is called a balled and burlap tree. And as you can see, this tree here has a ball, it's sitting in burlap, and it has a wire frame around it. Those are generally dug with a spade. They're nice and compact. One of the problems with this type of tree is a number of the roots are cut off in the digging process. So it's very important we plant these in late fall through the winter time. They have a better chance of survival. Whereas containerized trees you can generally plant year-round and be successful as long as you keep them watered. You'll want to plant this tree where it was planted at in the nursery, and once we get this burlap off we'll be able to see that. You can feel where the top of this tree is, where it was planted in the nursery. We want to keep that at ground level or slightly above ground level because it's going to settle. But one of the first things you'll want to do when planting a balled and burlap is to cut these straps that they use to tie it together. You'll want to cut those, get those away from the tree trunk. The next thing you'll want to do is remove the burlap from around the tree. And you'll notice they've put nails to hold the burlap in. You'll want to take that off, take the nails off, and fold the burlap back away from the trunk. Once you get the burlap pulled back, you'll notice there's part of the basket that has formed around the sides. You'll want to take any lip of this wire and fold it back over and fold it down into the hole. At the very least, you want to do this. Some people recommend taking it out of the wire basket, but the burlap, unless it's synthetic, will biodegrade and you'll be fine. And if you can't see the root flare where the roots come out of the base of the tree, if they've planted it too high in the nursery, which a lot of times is the case, you'll need to dig down. And dig down with a small shovel, spade. You don't want to damage the roots, but you want to dig down to where you find the root zone and where the roots come out of the base. That's where the depth is that you want to plant it. Okay. Once we have the tree in place, we want to get it level, then we'll start adding soil. When you add the soil, you want to break it up. You don't want big chunks. You want to put some in, break it up, and keep adding it around the tree. Once we have the dirt back in the hole and around the tree, you want to be sure that there's no dirt or very little dirt on top of where the tree came out of the nursery. You don't want to pile any more dirt on it than it was to begin with, and you don't want to add any more dirt around the base of the tree. So once you have your dirt in the hole, you have it level. You want to have it so the tree doesn't move. You may have to add a little bit more dirt after doing this, but you want to keep it level with where the tree came out of the nursery. Once we have the dirt around the tree, if you have extra dirt, what you may want to do is make a water ring. In this case, we take the leftover dirt, stay outside of the hole where we planted, make a berm, pack it down lightly, and the idea behind that is when it rains, the water will stay inside the hole and reach the roots faster. With that done, our next step will be to mulch. There's two different philosophies on mulching. As we look around town, we see a lot of places that will mulch their trees in this manner. This is what we call volcano mulching, and it's not correct. We want to put mulch 3 to 4 inches around the tree, but we do not want any mulch on the base of this tree. So we want to spread our mulch out 3 or 4 inches deep, and make sure we keep it off the base of that tree. And the ideal behind the mulch, it helps keep weeds out, but it helps keep some moisture in also. Now that we've finished with the mulching, the tree's completed except for a few last minute items. One is you want to water the tree. You want to try to give the tree an inch of water a week, which is roughly 15 gallons. Next, we want to remove the trunk wrap, the trunk protector. We'll cut that off now that we're finished. And also, you notice they have the tree wrap. We want to remove that. A lot of people at this stage will go to staking a tree. You don't want to stake a tree unless you just absolutely have to. It's stronger when it's able to blow in the wind and bend. It creates stronger root system, and it seems to hold up better. In this case, the tree's straight. We won't need to stake. So now we'll remove all the ribbons and string. Also, unless there's a broken limb on here, do not prune this tree when you plant. A lot of people used to say you'd prune it to match the root system, a number of other things. Don't prune anything on the tree unless it's broken. When it's time to plant, you use the same soil. No need to put in additives or fertilizer at that time, and leave the tree the way it is. Trees are wonderful. When you plant a tree, remember to follow these guidelines, and the effort you take will be repaid with years of enjoyment. I'm Keith Finch, urban forester with the city of Winston-Salem. Thank you for watching.